Darth Plagueis the Wise, among Sith Lords, set the final acts of the grand plan in motion and paved the way for the Sith Empire, led by Darth Sidious. In the original story, Plagueis was killed in his sleep by Palpatine the night before he became Chancellor. But what if Darth Sidious never killed Darth Plagueis? Before I begin, it's important to note that Darth Plagueis' real name is Hago Damask, which is how he's known to the rest of the galaxy and is the Magister of the Intergalactic Banking Clan. Let's start the night before Palpatine becomes Chancellor. His election is assured and Sidious congratulates Plagueis on his cunning plan. The Sith have done it, ascended to the level of Supreme Chancellor. With this, the final stages of the grand plan are set in motion. Only nights ago, Plagueis began manipulating Diaz, planting the seeds for him to place the order for the clone army. Backed by Plagueis, or rather Hago Damask, who will be the financial benefactor in this task. On the other hand, Sidious had been working slowly with Dooku to pull him onto their side. Plagueis noted decades ago when he first met Dooku that he could be a powerful ally, and now that has come to fruition. He plans for him to be the figurehead of their future galactic conflict, and all the pieces are coming together. The next day, they share the same Senate cart. Symbolizing their power, Senator Palpatine was backed by Hago Damask, one of the most influential beings in the galaxy. The result of the election are announced, and of course, Palpatine wins. In his acceptance speech, he pledges to return the Republic to its former glory and purge the Senate of corrupt practices. But what comes next was most intriguing.
We in the Senate would never have been able to keep the Republic intact for 1,000 years without the assistance of a few beings largely invisible to the public eye. Those accomplishments now need to be brought into the light of day. Hago Damask is one of those beings. It was Damask who allowed for the creation of hyperspace routes to the Outer Rim. The Republic received administration and many more necessary establishments required to keep the Republic moving forward. It is because of this I announce Hago Damask will become my co-chancellor.
This was a surprise to many in the Senate, and together they symbolized powerful leadership. Damask, feared and respected by the galaxy's most powerful beings, and Palpatine, the most cunning politician of his age, united as chancellors of the Republic. There might be hope yet, but little did anyone know they were fostering wars in the Outer Rim, growing an army, fomenting rebellion, and fabricating intergalactic war, corralling the Jedi and catching them unaware. Now they both served as visible hands in the political sphere, seducing the Republic into the arms of the Sith. Hago Damask steps down as Magister of the Intergalactic Banking Clan, but still runs it from the shadows. The final stage of their grand plan had begun. They learned that Maul was killed by Obi-Wan Kenobi, only after killing Qui-Gon. Plagueis thought this was a victory, as he assumed the Council would not allow Anakin, the supposed chosen one, to be trained. However, he was wrong. Obi-Wan's defiance convinced the Council that the boy Skywalker would become a Jedi. This was Plagueis' only fear. Prior to Anakin's arrival, he thought their victory was assured, but this might be a stain on his plans. His age lines right up when Plagueis successfully learnt the power over life and death. Was this the Force's way of fighting back? If it is, he will fight even harder, and he will not stop until the Sith rule the galaxy. Plagueis and Sidious forego the rule of two, believing it served its purpose. They decide they need to begin facilitating their Sith Empire and begin training Sith warriors. With their connections from the position of Chancellor, they find Force-sensitive children all around the galaxy, and Plagueis sets up a facility on Sojourn to begin their training in the Force. In their first few years, the facility is mainly droid-run, with a few servants, but in time, Plagueis will begin training them himself. Shortly after Hago Damask becomes co-chancellor, Diaz contacted him regarding the proposition he made and agreed. He will place the order for the clone army. Plagueis continues to manipulate Diaz all the way and uses this to test Dooku's loyalty, who successfully kills his close friend Diaz and takes over the Kaminoan cloning project, now as Darth Tyrannus. Together, the three Sith begin implementing their plan for the CIS, with Dooku now retaking his title as Count on Sereno, has gained a lot of influence. Plagueis already had a lot of influence over the Trade Federation, Commerce Guild, Techno Union, and of course, the Intergalactic Banking Clan, and thus organizes talks between these groups facilitated by Dooku, acting on Sidious and Plagueis' orders, and the early establishment of the Separatists has begun. For the next 10 years, everything runs smoothly for the Sith. The clones growing, the Separatists forming, and the dark side couldn't have been any stronger. Originally, Plagueis wanted Anakin dead, fearing he was the prophesied chosen one destined to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. However, after discussions with Dooku and Palpatine, they concluded that they would attempt to groom the boy to their side. They did some research on the boy, a slave alongside his mother who is still a slave on Tatooine. Dooku explains how the boy has already formed too many attachments to be a Jedi, and because of this, he will always be at odds with the Jedi's teachings. Plagueis devises a plan on how they can increase Anakin's discontent with the Jedi, without actually doing anything directly. Because they're the Chancellors of the Republic, they're in a unique position where they can meet with the Jedi and thus Anakin. They meet the boy for the first time and they both sense Anakin's attachments, not only to his mother, but also to the new senator of Naboo, Padme Amidala. Plagueis decides they will flood the boy with dreams of his mother, suffering on Tatooine as a slave, but also of Padme, strengthening his affection and bond to her. Because of this, Anakin will never be able to break away from the chains of his past and remain a slave to his emotions. To top it off, he wants Palpatine to become the father figure Anakin never had in his life, become his mentor, and teach him about politics of the galaxy. Whilst doing this, Anakin will also become familiar with Plagueis, and thus, when they eventually reveal themselves to him, he'll be open to joining them, seeing them both as friends. Between the years of the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, Palpatine's experiments are complete. He previously learned how to save others from death by manipulating their midichlorians, but now he can manipulate his own midichlorians to bring himself back from the brink of death. He's done it, achieved the power every Sith Lord who's ever lived has dreamed of, and their victory is assured. We now reach the events of Attack of the Clones, and everything is fairly similar. Palpatine is Anakin's mentor. He's assigned to protect Padme, and they fall in love and get married. Plagueis pays off the Tusken Raiders to kidnap Anakin's mother, and they implanted dreams of her death in his mind. Anakin then finds her just as she dies, and murders the entire village of Tuskens. After this act, Plagueis is sure Anakin will join them. The war begins and the galaxy is thrusted into chaos. The co-chancellors have managed to extend their terms on a basis that stable leadership is required during the war and separatist crisis, making many constitutional adjustments. The galactic conflict that Plagueis devised is perfect and he couldn't be more happy with his clones. The goal of the Clone Wars was to increase the discontent that the Senate and the people of the Republic had on the Jedi, painting them as enemies of peace rather than guardians, and this was working. The war was the perfect stage to bring out the darkness within Anakin, constantly at war and away from the woman he loved. Plus, his power only grew and he was quickly seen as the Jedi's best general. The Sith had been monitoring the people close in Anakin's life, and one day, Plagueis senses that Padme Amidala is pregnant. He brings this up with Palpatine and they determine that this is the best chance to pull Anakin to their side. They decide to test Anakin's strength and Palpatine allows Dooku to capture him, forcing Anakin and him to face off. This resulted in Anakin killing the Count. This opened the perfect opportunity for Anakin to join them. When he returns to Coruscant that night with his wife, the first time he has seen her in months. They place the nightmares in the boy's head and can instantly feel the turmoil brewing inside him. They move forward with their plan. Palpatine offers to make Anakin his representative on the Jedi Council, knowing they won't appoint him Master, the rank that he needs in order to search the restricted section of the Jedi archives for the power to save his wife. That night, Anakin meets with Plagueis and Palpatine at the opera, and they both can tell he's in turmoil. Palpatine brings up that he and Damask have concerns that the Jedi might be planting a coup, which is only reinforced by Palpatine confirming that the Council asked him to spy on the Chancellors. Palpatine then discusses the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise, which almost causes Plagueis himself to chuckle. Anakin was very interested in the tale, and he believes it could be an avenue to save his wife. He leaves them, and the Sith know they have him in their grasp. Plagueis revealed to Anakin that Grievous had been found on Utapau and wants him to go, but knows the Council would never accept this. Anakin presents Palpatine's beliefs to the Jedi, but they reject him and send Obi-Wan instead, further increasing Anakin's discontent with the Jedi. They decide to reveal themselves to Anakin later that day, when he reports that Obi-Wan has engaged General Grievous in combat. Together, the two Sith explain that Anakin has always been above and better than the Jedi, and he needs to break free from the chains they've created around him. And to do this, he must learn the dark side of the Force from them, and together can save his wife from certain death. Anakin is shocked and stunned. How could the Chancellors be Sith Lords? He didn't say anything for a few seconds, and Damask interjects. He tells Anakin that they know about the fate of his wife, but that he has the power to save her. To prove this, Palpatine brings in a clone soldier. He kills him in front of Anakin, choking the life out of him. Anakin confirms the clone is dead, and Plagueis works his magic, bringing the clone back to life and saving him. Anakin is completely stunned, but happy that he's found his solution. He asks the Sith what they want, and Plagueis tells him,
"Submit to us, Anakin. Your place is not amongst the Jedi, but with the Sith. Your ambition and power is not that of a Jedi. We know you want more, and we can give that to you. Help us overthrow the Jedi, prevent the coup they're planning, and together we can rule the galaxy."
Anakin gets on his knees and submits to the Sith.
"Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader."
Plagueis executes Order 66 on the spot, and together, the three Sith attack the Jedi Temple. Plagueis calls in the Inquisitors from Sojourn for their first task and assists in the sacking of the temple. They split up, and each take a legion of clones around the temple. They move with ferocious intent, speeding around the temple's halls and slicing up Jedi. Sidious finds himself face to face with Master Windu, defending the youngling's quarters, and the two engage in a duel. Their lightsabers swing with murderous intent, only mere inches away from each other. As the duel goes on, Windu's power increases, channeling Palpatine's power directly back towards him. He eventually overpowers the Sith Lord and slashes across his neck, ending his life. He stands over Sidious, triumphant. As he looks down at his chest, a crimson red blade filling his vision, and he gasps for air and collapses to the ground. Windu thought he had killed the Sith Lord, but little did he know there was another. Plagueis cradles his apprentice's corpse and begins focusing intensely on his midichlorians, which are still present. He commands them to gather and remain strong, and he successfully pulls Sidious back to life. With Windu dead, the temple had no chance of survival, and it was completely sacked. Plagueis and Sidious send Vader to deal with the separatist leaders on Mustafar, whilst they call an emergency Senate meeting to declare the Jedi enemies of the Republic and the creation of their galactic empire. Shortly after their speech, Plagueis senses Vader is in trouble and sends Sidious to go to Mustafar after him. 30 minutes later, Yoda pays Plagueis a visit, who's been looking forward to this confrontation for his whole life. In the original timeline, Sidious tries to escape, however Plagueis charged forward at the Grand Master. Their duel was magnificent, truly glorious. The light and dark side of the Force were shown in their complete forms. However, Plagueis was too much for Yoda, who was too old and was too far past his prime. Had this duel been hundreds of years earlier, the outcome may have been different. But it wasn't, and Plagueis ended the Grand Master, signaling the end of the Jedi Order. Meanwhile on Mustafar, Anakin and Obi-Wan are engaged in a rigorous duel. Obi-Wan jumps off the lava lake and onto the ash banks. He declares the duel is over and he has the high ground. Anakin jumps towards him. He's determined to show off his true power. However, behind Obi-Wan comes Sidious, who holds the Jedi in place with the Force. Anakin lands behind him and stabs him through the chest with his lightsaber, ending the former master. They grab Padme's body and return to Coruscant. Together in the most prestigious hospital on Coruscant, Anakin, Palpatine and Plagueis stand by as Padme gives birth, focusing their energy onto her and meditating through the Force. She successfully gives birth to two twins, Luke and Leia, and Vader thanks the Sith, who leave Anakin, giving him time with his wife. When Anakin lays eyes on his children, he experiences love he's never known before, greater than the first time he looked upon Padme. They knew the darkness had control over Anakin, and with further training, they would be able to reinforce this. The man Anakin Skywalker was gone, reborn as Darth Vader. When Padme returns from the hospital, she's disgusted with what Anakin has done, murdering all of the Jedi, but also killing Obi-Wan, choking her unconscious and being a part of the Galactic Empire. Anakin tries to apologize as much as possible, but Padme tells him nothing he will do will make up for what he's done. She proclaims she will be leaving him and taking their children, as she can't allow them to have the same fate as Anakin. She turns and begins walking away. Anakin clenches his jaw and fist, attempting to fight down this burst of rage, but it's impossible. The darkness has taken control over him. He grips her windpipe with the Force once again, pulling her into the air and turns her around. He tells her he's sorry, that no one will take his children away from him, not even her. He looks away as he senses Padme's death through the Force. He begins crying as he picks up his children and his wife's corpse, but knows he didn't have any other choice. Plagueis, Sidious and Vader established their galactic empire. They had complete control over the galaxy. Rebel bands were crushed early, with the Inquisitor program proving successful in that regard. The Rebel Alliance never gained any traction and thus was never a formidable opponent. Sidious, whom they knew were in opposition, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, were shortly executed after the Empire began. Plagueis would teach Vader and Sidious the secrets to immortality, and together, alongside Vader's children, they would keep the secret between them and thus had the power to achieve immortality and live forever. Luke and Leia would become Sith Lords themselves, with the potential to surpass even their father. Plagueis decides for his Imperial army he would still use clones. However, he'd phase out the older clones with newer clones, with less personality and a higher affinity for following orders. This would place the galaxy under swift control of the Sith, and the greatest empire they had ever seen. They begin to venture into the unknown regions in order to widen their reach, where they found hundreds of star systems and even more territory to conquer. If you enjoyed today's video, you have to watch what if Obi-Wan didn't leave Tatooine, and what if Sifo Dyas joined Count Dooku. I appreciate everyone's continued support on the video, so continue to comment your video ideas and may the Force be with you.